What's up, everybody? It's Troy Cartwright. Welcome back to another episode of 10 Year Town. We've got a special bonus episode for you today. I'm going to be talking about creating art in a world of context collapse. We're going to talk about what that is, how social media and AI play into it, and I really enjoyed making this episode. I hope you guys enjoy it too. So without further ado, let's get into it. We are living in an age of overwhelming noise in our daily lives, where every moment online throws more at us than we could ever digest. Social media, news feeds, endless notifications. It's a lot. And what I want to talk to you about today is what context collapse is and what we can do to combat it. Okay, so context collapse, what does that mean? Let me give you an example. To spend 10 minutes online is to encounter a comedy skit, an intense news story, an up-and-coming artist, an unsolved murder, and a video of a cat snuggling with a baby goat. And that is not an exaggeration. It is an experience I had just minutes before writing this, and it's all lopped in there together in one giant chaotic scroll. And in this sea of content, the truly meaningful stuff can get lost. And yet, the prevailing wisdom right now for creatives trying to break through is to post. Post every day, 3 times a day, 10 times a day. Post anything and everything. And sure, sometimes it works. Sometimes all the stars line up and something goes mega viral. But for the most part, there is a point we are missing in all of this. Because in its simplest form, we are taking our art that has been painstakingly crafted with years of experience and essentially throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. And if it doesn't blow up, it must not be good, which is ludicrous. And I think we are losing a lot of valuable stuff along the way because we have this value set that is based on one very specific type of reality. What we're putting in the catch-all bucket of content is stripping away the reason, the circumstances, and the process behind the art that we're making. So, in an endless scroll, even the profound can appear trivial. I'm reminded of a video I saw a few years ago where there was a world-class violinist playing a $1 million violin outside of a subway station. This was somebody that people pay hundreds of dollars for a ticket to see, and for the most part, nobody stopped. Nobody listened at all. And I don't blame the people that were just trying to get to work, but to me, it is illustrative of an obvious example of something that has been stripped of its context. And because it was stripped of its context, the performance was stripped of its value. And I see the same thing happening today, where we're weighing the whole balance of a young artist's career on whether or not a song can perform well when it is sandwiched between a celebrity tweet and a cat video. It's nonsensical. I think it is hard for any piece of art to breathe when it is buried under an avalanche of everything else. It isn't just an abstract problem that's affecting our ability to make art. It is messing with our heads on a day-to-day basis. Our attention spans are shrinking, and our focus is constantly being fragmented. One study I saw suggested that college students can now focus on one task for a mere 65 seconds on average before moving on. And I don't think it's that we all suddenly have terrible willpower, but rather I think it is that our attention is constantly being stolen from us. And I think we're just now starting to realize how corrosive it can be. But it's also a new thing. And I'm not some Luddite that thinks we shouldn't have smartphones or use social media and that we should just go back to the old days of pen and paper and snail mail. I think that's unrealistic. But it is important for us to start to develop some guardrails around how we are directing our attention. And I think for creative thinking, this is especially important. Because here is something that has been overwhelmingly true in my experience. The best thing for sparking creativity is boredom, which is crazy because I used to hate being bored. Growing up, it was the cruelest fate imaginable. But in today's world, when is the last time you can even remember it happening? We reach for our phones the second we feel just a twinge of it. But being bored is the key to a lot of stuff. When you're bored, your mind wanders. And when your mind wanders, that is where a creative insight can sneak up on you. And it is not lost on me that many of my best ideas happen in the shower, on a long walk, or via a conversation I'm having with somebody in the real world. I think that has a lot to do with being present, but in this new digital reality we're all living in, we rarely give ourselves that kind of downtime. Every free moment is an opportunity to soak in more stimuli, and Lord knows I'm guilty of it. But effectively, we're starving our creative minds of white space and choking off any room for new ideas to grow. So if you've been feeling scatterbrained and maybe creatively drained, it's not just you. It takes conscious effort to carve out the calm needed to create. And in a world that tells us to always be online, to always be reachable, choosing to unplug feels a little bit like an act of rebellion. But I also think it is vital. Doing nothing on purpose so that something beautiful can emerge. So I want to start off by saying, I don't think it's all bad. There's tremendous opportunity in being online. But feeling overwhelmed by technology is not a new story. Artists throughout history have faced moments when new technologies upended the way that things are. I'm reminded of something I uncovered recently when I was reading some of the history behind Vincent van Gogh. So let's take a trip back to the 19th century. Photography had just burst onto the scene, and suddenly painters weren't the only ones who could capture a likeness. You can imagine the identity crisis in the art world. Why painstakingly paint a portrait when a camera can do it in a flash? The poet Charles Baudelaire even ranted that photography was art's most mortal enemy, a pitifully literal medium of expression for a self-congratulatory, materialistic, bourgeoisie class. In his view, this newfangled camera was a vulgar machine that would cheapen art. And that is exactly what everyone was saying 5 years ago when TikTok first burst on the scene, and it is exactly how we are talking about AI today. The sky is falling, and the computers are coming to get us. I get it. Change is frightening, it's uncomfortable, but let me offer some calming words from a time in history when this has happened before. Instead of making painting obsolete, photography ended up liberating painters. Since cameras handled the job of realistic documentation, artists were free to explore new frontiers. It's not hard to imagine a world where Van Gogh spent his life painting portraits of minor noblemen and rich merchants, but instead, a generation of painters in the 1870s and 1880s realized they didn't have to compete with the camera at all. Instead, they could do things a camera couldn't. And this gave birth to an entire Impressionist movement. Van Gogh's swirling stars and starry night were a direct response to the invention of the camera. So yes, we're in a shift, and yes, it can feel overwhelming. But for us as artists, the key is to focus on what you can do that a machine could never. What kind of humanity can you inject into what you're doing. When the boundaries get pushed, when the status quo is eaten up by a new invention, historically, it has ended up broadening art rather than shrinking it. Van Gogh didn't quit painting just because technology changed. He dug deeper into what made his art unique. The camera could copy reality, but Van Gogh could capture emotion, and it gave birth to a whole new form of painting. So what can we learn from this? Whenever the sky is falling, whether it's because of a new gadget like the camera, or a new force like social media or AI, there is an opportunity hiding in there. The lesson from this history is that when technology disrupts, creators can respond by doubling down on humanity. The answer isn't to stop creating, it's to create differently, more authentically. When the outside world gets loud, the artist's answer is to go deeper. So let's fast forward to today's world of posts and virality. It is tempting for an artist or any creator to think, maybe I should make something to keep up. In my world, the songwriter world, I used to hear a lot of, let's write something that can go viral on TikTok. And it's understandable. Everybody's getting rich at the casino. So don't you want to play? But lately I've been hypothesizing on a different idea, which is, what if whispering something true can cut through the noise better than shouting something that's insincere? In an age of endless content, depth and authenticity are a superpower. When you pour real emotion and honesty into your work, it resonates in a way that no algorithm can predict and no imitator can fully copy. An AI can whip up an image or a poem on demand, but as the essayist Riaz Lagari put it, AI does not create with intent, personal vision, or purpose. It simply generates based on patterns. True art conveys deeper meaning shaped by human experience. In other words, an AI can mash up data from billions of images, but it doesn't mean anything. It has no soul. And I think we can see that, and I know that I can hear it. There is this sort of uncanny valley thing happening anytime I listen to an AI-generated song that I've heard thus far. And yeah, I'm sure it will get better over time, but I don't think that your job as an artist is to outpace AI at just churning stuff out. You are not going to win that race. The way to succeed in this new paradigm is to out-depth it. Your job is to simply be human, to put your mistakes and your lived experience into what you create. The value of art in the modern age is exactly that. Your frustrations, your dreams, your questions about life, all that messy, beautiful stuff, that is the gold. And I think the more you lean into that, the more your work will stand out in a world that is full of copies. Think about the artists you admire, the creators whose work really stays with you. Chances are they have a voice that is unmistakably theirs. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. They're just masterful at being themselves. Chris Cornell had a voice nobody could touch, and Kings of Leon brought something so different to the landscape that it pioneered a sound all its own. So as the internet flattens everything into scrollable content, choose to create something with depth, something that might not go viral in 10 seconds, but rather something that could resonate for 10 years. It's a bold choice, and that is not where the conventional wisdom is right now. But at the end of the day, art is not a numbers game. It's a game that no matter how hard they try, will never be quantifiable. I promise you that 5 people sincerely moved by your work is much more validating than 500 likes on a post nobody will remember in a week. Depth over breadth. It's a long road, but it is immensely rewarding. All right, well, that's all good and well, but how do we actually do that? How do we create meaningful, soul-driven work in a chaotic time? Consider this a gentle call to action for you, for me, and for anyone who's ever felt their creative spark start to flicker under the unblinking digital gaze of the great algorithm in the sky. Here's some things you can try. First off, reclaim some silence and some space for yourself. The world is not going to give it to you willy-nilly, so you've got to be disciplined and make some of your own. That might mean setting aside your phone for an hour. For me, lately, it's been writing songs on pen and paper because my notes app on my phone is just a little too close to accidentally winding up on social media. It might mean taking a walk without music or podcasts and just letting your mind wander. But it is in these quiet moments that a lot of my deeper ideas have been able to take root. I am very protective of whatever time I can find to pour into my creativity, and that time is given some fertile soil for those ideas to grow in. Secondly, I'd encourage you to embrace your own perspective. Don't shy away from what makes you you. That is your raw material for making something truly great. Nobody else has ever lived like you have. Van Gogh painted the view from his asylum window. Springsteen wrote Nebraska in the throes of a deep depression, and there are untold examples of this playing out. As Rick Rubin said, look for what you notice, but no one else sees. That is where your originality is. And the third thing I'd recommend is to remember technology is a tool, and it is not always reflective of reality. The internet, social media, AI, these can either run our creative lives or it can serve them. And I'd caution anyone to not let their self-worth be determined by a view count, and to not let flat metrics like monthly listeners or stream counts determine whether or not you think something is good. These can be nice indicators to help guide us along the way, but remember that sometimes something good can take a little while to catch on. So don't give up just because you're not seeing the numbers you want today. If it is resonating with you, chances are it's going to resonate with somebody else. And I feel the same way about AI. If it can help you brainstorm or handle some drudge work, great. Let it assist you, but don't hand over the steering wheel of your imagination. I think it is vital that we remain in the driver's seat. Technology should augment our creativity, not automate it away. We are in a time where showcasing your humanity and your point of view is your most precious asset. Your process, your perspective, that is what infuses art with magic, a poem with resonance, and a song with life. When you create from that place, you're doing something important. You're reminding the world and yourself what it means to be human. And that is what we are. We are not an algorithm. So if you're feeling a little lost, maybe try hopping off the digital treadmill, even if it's just for a little bit, and try digging deeper into the depths of your own creativity. Make the thing only you can make. And in a world of context collapse, dare to bring context back. Your context, your story, your unique perspective. It might not trend on TikTok, but it might start a little fire of something that could burn for years and years to come. In the end, I believe creating art is an act of defiance. It is an opportunity to rail against the absurdity of the universe and bear witness to the fact that you were here. Proof of life, so to speak. And that, my friends, is how we win in the age of context collapse, not by getting louder, but by remembering who we are. And that's it. That's the pod. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to let me know. Send me an email to troy@tenyeartown.com. And if you got any suggestions on something I should cover on a future solo pod, you can let me know there as well. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.